Fundamentals.
It's very important that we learn the fundamentals correctly because swimming is an incremental skill that requires step-by-step progression. So if you don't have a solid foundation, you're going to find it very difficult to progress further. And if you've made the wrong technique into muscle memory, it's going to become very hard to change later down in the line. Confidence is key here. A good swimmer is a calm swimmer. You have to work with the water rather than against it because it's a fluid that's constantly moving and very hard to predict. If you've ever tried to catch a feather or a leaf, and by you moving your hand wildly, you accidentally push the air around you, making the feather or leaf move further away from you as a result. That's kind of similar to the water, except with the air, you can't see yourself physically pushing the air, but you actually can see the water. So if you don't know what the water around you is doing, you may accidentally do more work against yourself as you try to move forward with the wrong method. Also, when you're stressed, you subconsciously tense up your muscles and muscles sink. We want to swim at the top of the water where it's a lot easier to push as compared to the bottom where the water is more densely packed and it'll be hard to swim through. The reason breathing is so important is because of CO2 buildup. Your blood carries oxygen to your muscles, but holding your breath slowly makes you run out of oxygen as they get transported to your muscles to keep you moving. Think about when you run or walk. It's easier to walk and also move your arms while you move your leg because of your steady breathing pattern. But if you're not an avid runner, it becomes more difficult to do other things as you're running because of your erratic breathing pattern. But for both walking and running, you're not holding your breath for a long period of time and then gulping or gasping a big breath of air and then holding it again. You're still breathing at some sort of rhythm. So we want to mimic our normal, comfortable breathing speed.
So here's some information about the water. That and air floats, and you have a lot of air in your lungs, which is like a natural life jacket.
That means your position and what you're doing in the water matters a lot, because if you're really closed off and squish your lung capacity, it affects how much air you can carry in there, and therefore reducing the size of your life jacket. Bone and muscle dense areas will sink naturally, but we use momentum to keep them afloat by moving, because things in motion will stay in motion unless acted on by another force.
Some tips about learning to swim. Building a habit takes time, so the more effort and time you put in, the faster you'll be able to learn the skill. Be careful about what you're doing in the water. If you're really tense, you'll sink.
Sometimes what the teacher says might not be the way that you understand things, so filming yourself might just be that extra explanation that you need to help you correct your technique. We're going to start off with floating, but there's some timestamps to help you if you need some specific advice. Floating is really important because we swim best at the top of the water. Learning to float in different positions will help with your confidence in the water and can even save you in tricky situations. Being able to float both on the front and the back is a life-saving skill, because if you're ever panicking in the water, as long as you know how to roll from your front onto your back and float there, you can catch your breath and calm down. Once you're calm, you can start to figure other things out, like remembering the techniques that you need or thinking of a plan on what to do from there. And confidence is key here. Even a really skilled swimmer that's panicking in the water will have trouble. But it's not just about saving you from trouble. Having confidence will help you relax. And remember from before when I said you subconsciously tense your muscles when you're stressed? So if you're calm and relaxed, you're not randomly activating all of the muscles in your body, and fat floats. You can then utilize the fats in your body as well as the air in your lungs to help you stay at the top of the water. Even though we have a natural life jacket, which is the lungs in our air, the air in our lungs, you still should be mindful of the parts of your body that has a higher muscle and bone density. It's completely normal for us to float but have our legs start sinking simply because we have a lot of muscles there. Now, it is crucial that everyone learns how to stand back up before attempting to do a float. If you're a teacher, don't teach your student to float without also teaching them how to stand back up. And if you're a student, make sure you know how to stand back up before doing any sort of floating. This is to prevent panicking, because in our mind, it seems really easy to just stand up. But as you're in the water, the buoyancy will kind of keep you in that floating position, and sometimes we just struggle. I also think a lot of us become more confident as we practice the standing up part, because it allows us to feel more in control of our body and what we are doing in the water. For any kind of floating, we must be gentle and start close to the water. A tip to remember is that your head position decides where the rest of your body goes. So if this is your head and these are your feet, if you lift your head your feet are going to sink into the water. But if you bring your head down, it will bring everything in a flat line at the surface of the water. Let's start with a front float. People who don't have a fear of putting their face in the water generally find the front float to be an easy entryway into floating. The front float is required for general confidence in the water. A key point to remember is to make yourself as wide and flat as possible. Think of putting a pen in the water versus a sheet of paper.
Make sure you learn how to stand up before you start to do the float. Try to break down your float into steps. Number 1, make yourself as wide as possible, kind of like a star shape. Number 2, take a big breath in and hold. Number 3, put your head into the water as if you're hugging the water and sticking your butt out. Number 4, stretch your leg out behind you. It doesn't really matter which leg, so you pick any and you want to lift it up towards the surface. If you're comfortable, gently kick the other leg off the floor and start exhaling into the water. You can break down standing back up into 3 steps. Number 1, slowly bend your knees towards your chest and you can use your hands to kind of help you. Number 2, use your eyes to find your feet. That will help you find the floor. 3, pull both hands towards your hips and lift up your head as you put your feet onto the floor. The back float is required for any type of swimming on your back. Some people find back floating easier because you can breathe, but most people find it a little bit trickier because they feel less in control, especially since they can't see what's happening below them.
We can split the float into 3 steps, but always remember to start with your shoulders as close to the water as possible.
Number 1, head back and look up at the lights. Number 2, puff up your chest. You can also do this by just pushing your shoulders back, opening up your chest like that. Number 3, lift up your hips or stomach to the surface of the water. You can try to shorten it and just remember head, chest, hips. We must always learn how to stand up before we attempt to float. There's 2 ways to stand up from a back float. The first one is a bit slower and more gentle. This one might cause some students to panic because of how slow you come back into a vertical position. Number 1, take a big breath in and hold. Step 2, you can either put your face into the water and curl into a ball, pretend you're sitting, or look at your chest, look at your stomach, bend your knees so that for step 3, you can look at your knees and your feet to find the floor. Use your hands to help you stand up by just pushing down to your hips. The second method is meant to be short and sharp. It might make you feel a little bit less in control, but step 1, take a big breath in and hold. Step 2, put your face in the water and try to roll onto the front. The goal is so that you can get your goggles in the water and see the floor. Once you see the floor, you're more in control. You know where your feet are and where the floor is, and you can stand up easier. Some tips. You can also try a dead man's float just to get a feel of where your body sits in the water, and you just let everything drape, pretend you're dead in the water. Most people have naturally sinky legs because of the higher muscle and bone density, so don't panic if your legs start sinking, and it will also be different for everyone in general because everyone has different body shapes. Once you learn how to do the back float and the front float, you can then try to roll from the front onto the back and then from the back float onto a front float.
Moving on to the flutter kick. The purpose of the flutter kick is for balance and propulsion. The power comes from the top of your leg, which is your glutes, your hips, and your thighs. But the propellers are the tops of your feet. Make sure you're kicking the water and not the air. We move forward because we push the water away from us. So if you're kicking a lot of air and making a lot of big splashes, you're not moving forward much because you haven't actually pushed much water at all.
The flutter kick is one of the most important foundations in your swimming journey. There's 2 main ways when practicing to help you get the feeling of the correct movement. It doesn't matter too much which one you choose as long as you find one that works for you. What we're looking for is just you are using your entire leg and that the movement starts from your hips. The first style is alternating style. Imagine your leg is one entire object. Pretend this is my leg, this is where my foot is, and this is where my butt is. So you have leg number 1 and leg number 2. It's alternating because as one leg goes down, the other leg will go up. They are switching. So in a way, it's almost like they are working together. Try to find a rhythm that works for you and you stick to it so you don't speed up or slow down. 1, 2, 1, 2. The second style is a one at a time style. Imagine your leg as a whip. You are giving power to the whip from the butt and the thighs from the very top of your leg. You want to whip down all the way to your feet. So you don't finish your kick until your entire leg has straightened and your feet have come down as well. 1, 2, 1, too. For this style of kicking, the water's buoyancy with your leg's momentum will help the leg that's not moving to slowly come back to the surface, so that by the time you finish moving the other leg, the leg that's resting is ready to go again.
Your head position can cause an inefficient kick. The deeper down you go in a pool, the denser it is and the harder it is to push the water away. But if you start lifting your head up, your legs will sink down as a result of trying to balance your body. So we want to maintain a neutral head position with a flat neck. Here are some general tips for both students and teachers. Don't rush. It's not about how fast you can kick, but about how well you can control the movement. The front and the back flutter kick is the same. It just feels a little bit different because of where the bulk of the water is pushing against your leg. Flexibility in the ankles is an advantage in creating that flicking motion in the feet. If you're using half your energy to tense your feet instead of using all of your energy to push the water away, then half of your energy is being wasted in preventing yourself from moving forwards. The entire leg kick should feel a little bit more resistant compared to the half leg kick. So you shouldn't be able to move your legs as fast as if you're just using half your leg to kick. Exaggerate your movements when you're practicing to help you get a better sense of what your legs are doing and what the water feels like against your legs. The kicking may be tough and kind of energy consuming at first because we're using different muscles as compared to when we're walking. But as you practice and those muscles get stronger, it'll become easier. And this is way more efficient as compared to kicking really fast with half of your legs and not really moving much distance.
Also, for anyone that gets foot cramps easily, you don't have to force your feet into the pointed position. You can just focus on relaxing your feet and making them floppy. After you're able to do that consistently, you can try rotating your legs inwards so that your knees and your feet are facing each other, and that can just give you a little bit more of a surface area to work with. As for the flutter kick on your back, use your lungs to your advantage. Depending on your body structure and build, you might benefit from sucking in a big gulp of air with your mouth and filling only your lung cavity instead of your stomach. You need to control your breath a lot more often, so it's a bit easier to just have it come to the lungs. I find that the back kicking tends to benefit a lot more from that alternating style of kick rather than the one at a time, since you can use the leg that's going down to help you lift up the leg that's going up. When you're pulling your leg down into the water, make sure it's completely straight. If your feet and calves are a lot lower than your thighs, that's a sign that you are using your feet to pull the water downwards and backwards rather than flick the water up and away.
Some common mistakes. Moving on the spot. This can look like a bendy leg kick on your back. Your calves are going lower than your thighs. Some might even start moving backwards. This could be due to extremely rigid body, especially in the calves and the feet, ankles, leading your kick with the calves. So instead of starting from the top and whipping down to your feet, you are starting from your feet or your calves and you're lifting up to your thighs, or you're pulling down. It could also just be that you're using way too much energy in displacing the water around you rather than pushing the water away from you. The flexibility in the ankle is really important to be able to flick, whip, or push that water away. So if we are extremely stiff, try bringing your attention elsewhere, such as really squeezing your glutes, squeezing your butt muscles, and focusing on imagining if you can use your glutes to lift up your entire leg to the surface of the water, or using your hamstrings to lift the rest of your leg upwards. Or you can focus on sucking in your stomach and trying to look like Superman position in the water, like this. Sinky legs. This could be because your lower body is too stiff, except that often looks a bit more like most of your body is sinking, but the feet are still kind of at the surface and you look banana shaped. But if you're just having sinky legs, then it could be because of your body position, such as your head is a little bit lifted, everything else is sinking downwards, or you're putting too much emphasis at the top of your body and you're trying really hard to lift the top of your body up out of the water and the rest of your body is just gonna go down to balance. Or it could be that you're using the wrong part of your leg. Super light, fast, and big splashy kicks. This is just, you're kicking too much air, you're definitely not using your entire leg. If your legs, especially the calves and the feet, are feeling extremely light, they're probably not inside of the water and you might be using your knees to kick. We may think that we are swimming fast because we're moving our legs super fast, but you're just making a big splash because you're kicking a lot of air. And the higher the splash, the more amount of air that you've kicked. Entire body is shaking from side to side. This is just, you're super stiff and you're probably trying to use that entire leg and kick with all of your might. Not too big of an issue. You'll probably become more relaxed as you practice. Super wide, far apart kicks. This is also not too much of an issue when you're just practicing, because this one actually forces you to use your entire leg. So once you learn the feeling, you can try and start bringing your legs closer together. Kicking will always make you more puffed out than just using your arms to swim, because our legs require the most amount of oxygen due to the large veins going to them. So it's crucial that we master the correct kicking technique so that it's not as energy and effort consuming, especially when we add in the arms. Let's break down the physics at play here. If you're starting from the top of your legs, the thighs and the glutes, that's the part that you're tensing up first. So every other part should be relaxed. That means as you push your thighs down against the water, because the rest of your leg is relaxed and there's a joint at the knee, the water's buoyancy will try to keep your legs up. It will push against your leg and keep it up. So if your leg is relaxed, there will be some natural bending at the knees, but because you're using your entire leg, you must follow through to your feet. So you must use your thighs and your glutes to snap your leg straight.
This flat position is really important in swimming because you are trying to move forwards and backwards through the water. If you're not kicking, you're going to be in a slightly slanted position. That means as you add in the arms, you're using a lot of your energy swimming up and down, like bobbing up and down in the water, rather than using all of your energy to just go forwards.
Let's talk arms. Our arms are like the paddles of a boat, while our legs are what's keeping the boat balanced. And the head is the steering device. The front crawl technique is the most efficient pulling technique in swimming. It consists of a bent arm pull and push of the water, and it's the most optimal form to get the maximum power out of your arm with minimal drag.
This technique was used so much in freestyle competitions that now it's kind of just called freestyle. It's really important that you remember to maintain your streamlined position at all times to minimize drag.
You can split this technique into two parts:
the underwater phase and the out of water recovery phase, with each phase's essence being the bending and stretching of the elbows. One is bend and pull, and two is extend and push. The bending and pulling part should be a bit more slow and gentle. You should save your energy at this part and just use it to help you get into the right position for pushing. Stick your elbow out and away from your body, and it will be in line with your shoulder so that your fingertips are pointing towards the floor and your hand is next to your body. Your elbow should always be at the highest point of your arm. If you're dropping it or your elbow is too close to your body, then that's the wrong position and wrong technique. When you're pulling and pushing, you should always be leading with your hand first, but after your hand has come out of the water, your elbow is at the front position. Essentially, the point of bending your elbow and leading with your palm is so that you can utilize all of the muscles in your arm. The straighter and more rigid your arm is, the more likely you're going to be using your shoulder muscle, which is a lot less efficient. You can imagine when you're holding your groceries, if you're holding it with a completely straight arm, where is it tensing? Versus if you're holding your groceries with a bent arm. You are moving your arm in a circle in the water, which has resistance force. If your arm is super rigid and straight, you're actually more likely to injure your shoulder. Some tips for the front crawl. For the recovery, you have to make sure all of your arm is out of the water, including your fingertips, because you want to reduce any chance of you pulling yourself backwards. The goal is trying to get your movements as fluid as possible, less rigid. Once you've got more of a hang of it, you can try to focus on your timing. Aim for a rhythm that lets you have a continuous stroke without any interruption, but be careful not to break your streamline. There should always be a hand in front of you to form that arrow shape. Your hands are switching and replacing each other at the front.
Next up is freestyle. We use our palm to push ourselves forwards, whereas our legs are the propellers, which help keep us in the correct position for the most efficient method of pulling the water. It is very important that you don't skip straight to full-on freestyle. You need to start with a simplified form and slowly add on skills until you can reach a stage where you can start refining the technique. Students generally learn how to do the torpedo kicking, and once they have the correct body position and kicking technique, they can then progress onto either learning the simplified circular arm motion or learning how to do side breathing. This depends on the age and skill of the swimmer. But it is crucial that you learn the side breathing and the proper side breathing technique, side breathing position before you start refining your freestyle technique. If you cannot learn how to do your side breathing in freestyle, you will never be able to swim long distance or swim recreationally. If you're swimming to compete, you generally don't need to breathe, but in the off chance that you do need to breathe and you don't know how to do it properly, that will cost you your entire race. Your palms are what's catching the water. So if your fingers are wide open, a lot of water is slipping through the cracks. You don't have to fully close them like this because little air pockets can form that can act as a barrier.
Freestyle uses the flutter kick in a face down position and the front crawl technique. So I highly suggest watching those first, as it is the foundation for all of your swimming endeavors. So here's a brief recap of the basics.
I'm not going to dive super deep into the physics and efficiency of techniques for the 4 strokes in this video, but rather focus on key points and how to correct common errors students make by understanding the cause of those errors.
The main point of the kick is to keep yourself in a flat position at the surface of the water. You'll never reach an advanced stage of freestyle if your kicking technique is wrong, and your technique will always be inefficient if your body position on the water is wrong. The correct side breathing technique is vital for improving your speed and endurance. You need to be somewhat confident with floating in different positions at the stage, and the side position is half a goggles in the water. Top of your head should be pushed down as much as possible, and you are keeping your chin somewhat close to your chest still. Your head is either in front of your arm or directly on top of your arm, but at no point should it come out further than your arm. Once the student is comfortable rolling while they're swimming to the side and they are able to consistently achieve the correct sideways position, that's when you want to add in the one arm freestyle. While they're doing their arms, they can think about how they are pulling the water and how they're kicking, and once they're 50% out of air, go hand first and you start your roll underneath the water before coming back out. Make sure you're able to get your mouth out while your hand is still pulling the water, just to give yourself a little bit more support, that by the time your hand comes back in, your head is going back in. A really common mistake I see people doing is while they're sideways, they are trying to really lift their head up to get that breath. But if you notice, if this is the water line and I lift the top of my head, my mouth actually goes into the water. This is why you want to get the top of your head as low as possible so that your mouth can come outside of the water.
Let's talk about targeted corrections. To accurately help a student improve their technique, being able to spot what they're doing wrong and how they're doing it wrong is a good starting point. But you must address the root cause to completely solve the problems that they're facing. As a coach, yes, communication is key, asking how their swim feels, what they're thinking while they swim, but there's also external and internal factors that you must consider. Some common examples: arm leaving the front too early. When this happens, your whole body's thrown off balance. This can also be accompanied by the student throwing their head way too deep into the water as they're taking a breath and finishing that breath, or it's accompanied by a bendy kick and an arched back. Upon identifying these errors, some students do great by just simply telling them catch up arms, or keeping their arms above the ears at all times, or telling them to switch hands at the last second. But those that struggle may need a bit more help understanding the purpose of the arms. A common misconception is that arms are just for show, and students try to mimic what their mental image of freestyle looks like. Add in the second misconception of moving arms fast equals swimming fast. It can result in this rushed freestyle where they aren't actually using their hands for pulling. This also manifests in common errors like leading with the elbow, where they are dragging the elbow through the water for the least resistance. Extremely rigid arms, where their entire arm is locked straight. Or if you taught the bent arm pull, instead of bending and extending, they just have their elbow frozen in place. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the ones that take your words literally and very seriously, where their movements are very exaggerated and awkward, with pauses between every action. These are often the trickiest to correct because they'll need you to carefully pick what you are trying to communicate and require a lot of repeated practice of each action, broken down into steps.
They can also have the snaking arms, where they're overreaching across the center line
and causing the body to arc. But I find that telling them to over-exaggerate can work. For example, instead of one hand crossing the center, tell them that they need to have their hand enter the water wider out, shoulder width apart, or saying that they have to replace the hand exactly at the place that the previous hand was. No crossovers. Now, the non-kickers are either the hardest or the easiest to correct, depending on if their kicking technique is bad and how deeply rooted the bad technique has been been ingrained into them. A proper kick means a good body position. This helps with efficiency by reducing drag, also utilizing all the muscles in your leg purely for propulsion. A student should understand that to move forward, they must push the water away, and then being able to feel for themselves that the kicking is pulling themselves backwards, as well as not utilizing the stronger, bigger muscles in their leg. Just make it clear that the water is the lightest and therefore the easiest to push at the top. So the deeper they go when pushing the water, the more energy it uses because it's heavier. And then show them that with the lifted head, their legs are essentially kicking at the bottom of the pool.
What do you think are some possible root causes for this common error, and how would you go about solving it?
Even though backstroke is pretty much just the exact same as freestyle, just facing a different direction, people often struggle a lot with backstroke as the water feels so much more different on your body. There's one less step in doing backstroke though, because you don't need to learn how to do the side breathing. We usually start the progression by learning how to do a soldier kick, which is just having your arms by your side and kicking on your back. From there, you can start learning a basic circular motion with your arms, one arm at a time, before trying to make it more continuous. So as one arm enters the water, the other arm has to come out of the water. Or as one arm starts to pull the water, the other has to come out. After, you can do the kick and the continuous arms at the same time without the kick dropping far below the surface of the water. You might be ready to learn the front crawl pulling technique on your back. For children, we generally teach it a lot later on, simply because it's a bit difficult to think of when you're oriented in the opposite way that you're used to. Some key points are making sure your hips are always lifted, pushing down into the water before lifting your leg up to flick the water away. And you can rotate your legs inwards so that your knees and your toes are facing each other, and that might just help give you a little bit more surface area on the tops of your feet, which are the parts that will be pushing the water away. As for the arms, some rotation in the shoulders can help a lot with the positioning. It's very easy to make the mistake of pushing sideways as opposed to the front crawl pull, which is behind you. You want to push the water away from the direction that you want to go in. So if you're going to push sideways, you're going to swim like a snake. To help you visualize what you have to do with your arms in the water, you can think about dropping your elbow down before you do your pull. Just like how in freestyle, you want to stick your elbow out before you use the power to push. It's also kind of like when teachers tell students to have a high elbow pull in freestyle. The opposite direction would be a low elbow push with backstroke.
Be mindful of your neck position. If you tilt too far back, your nose is going to go inside of the water and you are going to get water up your nose. If you're lifting your head too far forwards and you're looking at your feet, everything else is going to sink and you're going to struggle a lot to do any sort of movement through the water.
If your kick is not strong enough for backstroke, you're going to have a lot of body position issues. If you're swimming on a diagonal, a lot of your energy is used just to keep yourself up rather than moving forwards or backwards. If you can keep a steady entire leg kick with mini slashes going for an extended amount of time, you can already try doing other things with your arms. Be very careful with the kicking. A lot of us tend to use our calves to pull the water down and towards us. That pulls you backwards. The best way to notice that is having someone else look at you. If on your downbeat of the kick, your feet and your calves are going way below your thighs, then you're using your calves or your feet too much. Your legs should be completely straight on the downbeat because we are starting the movement from the thigh and we are tensing up the thighs. So if you push your thighs down and your calves are relaxed, then the water should be trying to push against that, pushing it up. If you are bending your knees on the downbeat, you are doing something to counteract that water pushing up against you force. So you are definitely tensing somewhere down here to balance yourself. However, on the upbeat, because you're starting from your thigh and you're lifting your leg up, the water will want to push you down. And if your calves are relaxed, it's going to cause a bit of bending. But the kick should be so short and sharp that you whip everything straight because you're using your entire leg, starting from the top, finishing at the feet. So because of how fast the kicking is, it looks like your legs are almost completely straight. If you want to do breaststroke competitively, you need to be very careful when you begin your breaststroke learning journey. Because of how much this stroke has changed over the years, a lot of different teachers will have their own versions of breaststroke that they learned from their teacher. A lot of breaststroke mistakes comes from a misunderstanding of the stroke. Your arms and legs are working together to push the water away, but breaststroke turns your feet into hands as well. So instead of flicking, they must first catch and pull the water before pushing it away. So most of the mistakes are to do with the kick, but that doesn't mean we ignore the arm technique. Two most important parts of correcting breaststroke: one, creating that strong foundational understanding of the purpose of the legs and feet, and two, having the students see exactly what they're doing with their legs so they can build that brain and body connection.
I used to call it the whip kick, but now I just call it the survival kick. It's actually less of a kick and more of a pull. You're turning your feet into hands and you're using the insides of your feet to grab the water into the middle. As you push the water into the middle, it will form a current that goes back and away from you. A similar concept is used in the sculling hands. The progression for breaststroke learning generally looks like learning survival backstroke first, then learning the survival kick on your front, then learning to do one pull, two kicks, so trying to get the timing, and then adding it all together with the breathing. The breaststroke pull is just a half double arm front roll pull. The breaststroke kick can be broken down into three main positions or steps. Position 1 is having your legs out straight. In position 2, you bring your heels to the sides of your body. And position 3 is more of an action or a step where you're circling your legs around until they are straight. At position 2, you need to check for two main things. Number 1 is that your feet are flexed. Number 2, making sure your feet are wider than your knees. This is much easier learnt on the back, where the students use a pool noodle in an upright sitting position so they can see what their legs are doing as they swim. Just make sure that they understand that once on their back, their heels are going downwards below their body so that they aren't bringing their knees to their chest. Why we don't go super wide is because we need to find the sweet spot between pushing the water sideways and pushing the water behind us. If you push your hands in a diagonal line, some energy is used to push sideways and some is used to push behind you. If you circle outwards too wide and it's no longer diagonal, you're purely using your energy to push sideways. The part where you should be using your energy to go diagonal is at the start when you're bringing your arms to shoulder width apart, or your legs to hip width apart. Anything after that should be purely used in pushing the water behind you. The timing is just push, kick, glide. If you do everything together, it's wrong. If you wait until each part is fully complete before doing the next, it's also wrong. Start the pull, then start the kick, then glide once your legs are close together. When correcting breaststroke, you need to understand how each student is using their arms and legs. Most often we see a splashy breaststroke, which means there's a flick or a kick somewhere in their technique. This could be from using the wrong part of their leg, so they're either doing a flutter kick or a side stroke kick. Usually the teacher would just tell the student to flex their feet, but if the student was doing the correct breaststroke kick motion with pointed feet, it's more likely that there won't be any splash, just an inefficient kick. A flick can still happen with pointed feet, but you will need to do the motion that causes the flick, which is using your thighs to whip the water away, rather than using the soles of your feet as if it's the palm of a hand to pull the water to the middle. Students who find their lower body sinking quickly and adding flutter kicks in between should practice and get used to the feeling of gliding with their head down. The tilted head, putting their body in a slanted position, doesn't give them enough time to glide and feel the effects of their pull or kick. It's easy to grasp the feeling of moving forwards in freestyle and backstroke, but breaststroke requires some patience. As the student improves their technique, the gliding practice will bring it all together. I won't touch too much on butterfly since it requires a lot more back and forth between the student and the teacher, but you can definitely apply the foundations I've explained about the purpose of your actions onto butterfly to make sure that you're utilizing all the muscles in your body efficiently and not wasting energy on pointless actions that will only slow you down. For butterfly, the most common mistake is the student not understanding where the power should be coming from. Instead of moving the neck and knees excessively to create the look of that dolphin kick, a student should understand that the purpose of chest up is to put your hips in the correct position to whip the rest of your leg down and push that water away. The part that's whipping the water is still from the hips down, which is where you should be using all of your energy on. So if you look at some Olympic swimmers, they aren't really using their chest as the main source of power. It's all coming from their legs. One advice I have for the dolphin kick is to make sure you finish your kick at the feet. It's the same principle as the flutter kick, where you're utilizing your entire leg. But since you're likely visualizing a mermaid as you swim, it can be easily mistaken for only using your knees to bring your feet to your butt, when you actually still want your entire leg to be a whip. You still want to start your kick at the top, the glutes and the thighs. Start that whip at the top, at the glutes, at the thighs, and you want to whip all the way down to your feet because you want to maximize that power and utilize every muscle in your leg. Here's some drills you can try when practicing. For a stronger kick, try bulldozer dolphin with the board perpendicular to the water for added resistance. This is the equivalent of strength training. For arms, try a pull buoy between
the legs. And if you're tired, don't stop. Just do one arm at a time. For undulation, exaggerate your movements and skip the part where you bring your arms around the front. Just focus on your body and the motion it's creating. Butterfly requires a lot more body coordination and a lot of figuring out what works for you. So expect this to take a lot longer. Move with purpose. Understand your intentions behind every action and fully utilize the water to your benefits. Snowy. Yeah.